Good evening. In a world where everybody is supposed to think the same and act the same, we've got Thomas Sheridan, somebody who's not afraid to question the mainstream narrative in his own inimitable way. Thomas, you're very welcome to the show. How is life in County Sligo this evening?
Hi, Aisling. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. It's lashing rain. It might as well be Southeast Asia. It's been monsoon weather all day, but it hadn't rained in a while, so I can't complain.
Well, the sun is setting here in Provence, and it's all a bit surreal. There's so much going on around the world, in Ireland. And, your insights over the past few years, but I've only got to know you over the past few months from your car on YouTube. And it's so funny the way we've all connected. You're fascinating. You've got so many references. You've studied the art of magic. And I'd love to get your take on whether or not you think the Irish are under some kind of, and not the world, not just the Irish, are under some kind of a spell right now, because logic and rational thinking doesn't seem to come into the choices. And I'm talking about the needlecraft, as you put it.
Oh, absolutely. The whole world has been hexed by this Rona thing. Absolutely, 100%. And I mean that very literally. I'm not using that as a metaphor. I mean, I'm absolutely 100% telling you this is true. We have been hexed by a pathological force that has used everything to bamboozle the public to the point where they can't think for themselves anymore, primarily using things that left people's own imagination to fill in the gaps and fill them full of fears. Now, if you look at how the magical process works, a lot of it is very theatrical. A lot of it is very artistic. A lot of it is very based on the sign of the razzle dazzle thing, this kind of thing. Now, that's the same for ritual magic as it is for like stage magic. It's the whole idea is to capture people's subconscious mind and then force them to apply their consciousness or cognition or their cognitive processing or their behavior towards the will of the black magician. We'll just call it for that sake. The classic, how this happened was, I mean, I knew as soon as it was happening. The first thing was the shots of people being welded into buildings in Wuhan, the fuzzy images of people being welded into buildings and was zipped up in body bags. That could have been anything. You're just unconditionally trusting the media to tell you the truth. That could have been people killed in car crashes. That could be anything. But the lack of information, coupled with the fact it was filmed in dark fuzziness, immediately set off my alarm bells. I said, why is there not better footage of these people dropping dead in the streets? If it's the Holocaust, if it's the catastrophe that they're saying it is, why a few fuzzy digital bad video images? So I was already suspicious. But what nailed it for me, that it was absolutely, and I mean this, like, I know people don't actually believe this, but I worked in Wall Street for 7 years. I can tell you for a fact that these people use these terms like bamboozled, bedazzled, and stuff like that in terms of like financial acquisitions and takeovers in order to like break down even entire countries. And I knew it right away when I saw the line of trucks in the darkened street in Milan. I said, the fuckers are absolutely hexing the public now. This is absolutely happening. And what you see is what you see. You see nothing. You see trucks. You see trucks on the street, on the dark lights. Why do we not see daylight? Because the darkness brings in your subconscious fears. They didn't show the trucks in the daytime. They showed them at nighttime, parked on the street, empty. And your mind goes, oh my God, therefore to take away the thousands and thousands of bodies from Milan into the mass graves. And now it was never said. It was never implied. It was never mentioned that that's what they were for. But the public were openly encouraged to put that idea into their own heads in order to believe that this was a major catastrophe unfolding, especially using the nighttime images and the fuzzy images, that the human mind in states of panic has a tendency to fill it full of phantoms of the subconscious mind, terrors and fears. And they know this stuff, right? Then I was like, really, okay, there's something really going on here. They're going to go for something really big here now. And it was a 9/11 type almost, attitude. But then when they started building this makeshift military hospital down by the Dublin docks, it seemed farcical. I mean, it seems farcical to people now, but they parked like a warship behind it to like, what's that doing there? Why is there a gunboat behind it with its turret showing? It's all about bamboozling and programming and terrifying and unleashing the subconscious fears from the bottom. And what happens then is the population are completely under the control of the black magicians, who would be RTE. Deal with it.
But who's going to, I mean, from my position, because I was working within the mainstream media when all this was unfolding, and I feel the media was infiltrated. I mean, I know media always has its agenda and always has over the years, but I think something darker happened, that the media across the board has been infiltrated, and also the medical community. So you've got two big pillars of society that people trust. But who's pulling the strings? Okay, we can say the globalists, but it seems to be even darker than that. This agenda seems to be something that we should know our enemy. We should know what's going on. Who's pulling the strings?
Well, the first thing I think to myself is the pharmaceutical companies trying to make a profit, just like the financial houses have recessions every so often to get bailed out. The banks get bailed out, like in 2008. But that didn't seem to count either, because it seemed to go so much more deeper than that. It seemed more deeper than just like a smash and grab raid by big pharmaceutical companies. There seemed to be an element of change in society. Yeah, the globalist is the only word I ever use, but who actually are the globalists? Who are the ones at the top pulling the strings? Well, I mean, the best term I ever heard was used by the actor Andy Garcia in The Godfather 3. When he was talking about the assassination of the Pope John Paul I, he called them the secret unknowns. And I think that's what they are. We haven't got a clue who's really at the top there, giving the orders to the globalists. We probably do know who they are, but we're never going to find out who they are. We're never going to know them by name. We're never going to know what their real agenda is. But obviously, whatever they are and whoever they are, they're very disturbed individuals, in the sense that they think that altruism and tyranny are the same thing, that they honestly believe that there's something seriously wrong with the human race, and it has to be repaired and fixed somehow through their policies. And for some reason, they've used this pandemic crisis, or we're going to call it, as a mechanism in order to push lots of agendas ahead, including the surveillance state. These are things they've wanted for a long time.
The one big one that's coming out, though, is depopulation. I mean, if you look at Bill Gates, he speaks openly about depopulation through the use of vaccines. He doesn't even hold back. And he's the main guy who seems to be funding the vaccine research, the media, the journalism in universities. And yet nobody questions it. It just seems to be so peculiar that he's straight up about it. A lot of these guys, they tell you what they're doing. And yet it's not allowed to be part of the conversation. You mention it and you get labeled a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, well, I'm perfectly happy being called a conspiracy theorist, because it's just like show me any other group in the world today who have actually called it right, except us, me. Exactly. People like us, we've called it bang on. I mean, people like I've been watching for years, like my good friend, the late great Enoch Crane. Everything he stood on a stage and said has come to pass. Everything. And he was, all through his life, was called a conspiracy theory nut and this kind of thing. And everything he said has come to pass. The population thing, I don't even know how people can say that's a conspiracy theorist when it's been openly out there since the time of Malthus and the Malthusian concepts of Catholics were having too many babies, so we better find a way to deal with that because there'll be too many people in the Catholic countries. And we know that the actual impetus behind what happened in the famine here was population reduction. That's why there was a standoffish thing. To sort of
genocide, straight up genocide. Yeah,
that's not conspiracy. And we see, like, all over the world, the eugenics movement, Bill Gates' father, that's been going on, like that whole thing, Margaret Sanger, all that stuff. That's all been going. They've never lied. H.G. Wells and the Fabian Society. They've never hid or lied or walked away from the fact that they wanted less people in the world, because they consider us, what H.G. Wells called us, the base, to be a parasitic force upon the planet.
want to talk about symbolisms. We have Emmanuel Macron here, you know, they're doing, look at it, this whole thing. We're seeing this a lot, you know, we have this a lot. You understand the symbolism well. You know, I'm trying to wrap my head around it. What are they saying to each other, these guys?
Okay, this one is, I use this all the time, right? You see a lot about Ronnie James Dio made this famous. That is a Sicilian thing. It's called to deflect the evil eye. That's all that is. That's a way to protect people from deflecting the evil eye. And it's called the malediction benediction. It looks like a devil here, but if you shine a light on this from the side and see the shadow on the wall, you see a kind of a it looks like a puppy or something. It's weird. It's a weird thing called the malediction and the benediction, but it comes from.
Could it have more sinister meaning, say, in the wrong hands? Like, it's obviously a sign.
No, it's just protection. It'd be like wearing a suit of armor, a psychic suit of armor. The one, and it's the same thing with the one eye. That's why they all do that. And I mean, I do that as well. That's just also to protect you from negative forces. That's always been well known as well. That's been a lot of stuff comes from like old European folk magic. Now, the one with this one like this, that's a Masonic one. That's the show there in the Masons, okay? That's a famous one. And so is the one, the hands here. A lot of them have Masonic, are in Masonic groups, even the females. They're in things like the Eastern Star and stuff like that. In terms of projecting an evil thing, well, they don't have to because they're doing it anyway. It's not like they don't have to give us a... See, the thing is, I'll tell you what the evil thing is, the projection is. They always tell us what they're going to do before they do it. So when they do it and you go, what did you do that to me for? They can't say, you came here of your own free will. For instance, the needlecraft, right? Like, they made it quite clear from day one that the research and development wouldn't be done until 2 years from now, next 2024, right? 2023, sorry. And they also said that it was an RNA augmentation thing. And they also told us straight out front that it was never being tested properly. And people ran up and took it. Now we're hearing about blood clots, strokes, heart attack. And you can run up there and say, they can say, why did you make us take this thing when it's made us sick? And they will say, but we never hid the fact that it makes you sick. No, you chose to believe that it was some kind of magical silver bullet that was going to cure you. You never said, you know, I'm taking 3 shots now. We never said you only had to take 1. You put that. You see, this is how they cover themselves. This is the dark side of it. The whole thing is that, you know, they pray. See, they don't teach this kind of common sense in school, but the devil knocks on the door and you invite him in. That's you know, and once he's in the front door after you invited him in, you can't then complain that he's in your house. And this is a very old Freemasonic idea that that you brought this upon yourself. So it's like, you know, even like, and then as soon as people started getting blood clots and strokes and all the dying and everything, that wasn't hidden from the mainstream media. That was quite easy to find. And still people would go, that's conspiracy theory, and we're still running out to get it. If that's not the definition of being spellbound and hexed, I don't know what is.
That's it. That's why I think they're under a spell. But I want to talk about the needlecraft itself, because if you look at, say, the gain of function research, it's got black magic all over it. You know, it's weird. What are they doing with the animals? It's torturous. They're mixing stuff together. When I heard about the ingredients, I just thought, oh, that just sounds like black magic rather than science.
Yeah, like a kind of a pathological alchemy or something. Why would you want to develop a disease that makes people sicker? I mean, what kind of mind does that? I mean, other than someone who's really disturbed. You know, you take this as far as you want to go. Listen, I mean, let's be honest. We've seen changes in people that we can barely comprehend. People we've known all our lives have changed overnight. There's a glazed look in their eyes. You're saying, who the hell is this person in front of me? Where did they go? And you can use things like, you know, invasion of the body snatchers as a metaphor. But as a metaphor, it actually makes more sense than the actual real thing. It's almost like if they told me tomorrow that people that we know have been taken over by an alien force. And when you think about it, it could be a microbe. It could be something like that. There's certain viruses that do alter human behavior. I would believe it because nothing else makes sense.
Well, certainly in some of the politicians, I shouldn't name names, but say Tony Blair, between ourselves, he just looks possessed. He's done bad things. He's a man who's done a lot of bad things, in the Middle East. He's got blood in his hands. And there's quite, look at Joe Biden, he looks like a clone. It's just, they don't look real anymore, you know?
Well, none of our, I mean, Tony Blair is an out-and-out psychopath. I mean, I knew that years ago. I mean, I wrote a book called Puzzling People, The Labyrinth of the Psychopath about 10 years ago. And I did a tour with John Pilger, not John Pilger. The guy wrote the Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And I said on a stage in London that Tony Blair was the absolute definition of a psychopath. And I mean, all hell broke loose after that. I was being tailed and everything around London. But he is a classic psychopath. There's no personality there. There's no personality depth. And as they age, they tend to go into psychosis. And you can see that with him now. But he has he's a guy who, wants to run some World Catholic Prayer Council after he's killed 1 million people over fraudulent weapons in the Middle East. There's no reference between the different personality types. There's a dissociation between the Tony Blair who blows people up for fake weapons of mass destruction and the Tony Blair who smiles and tells you he's a wonderful man. And this is the kind of nonsense that these people are. That he's a psychopath in his case. In Joe Biden's case, it's just senility. I think the man is just senile. But they want that. He'd be ideal because they wouldn't want anyone who was in there as cognitive and thinking. They'd be much better off with somebody who they can easily control.
One thing that you mentioned in your videos before, and it gave me great hope, and I've noticed it myself, is these guys may be mean, they may be bad, they may be greedy, power hungry, but there's an awful amount of incompetence. A desperate amount when you look at the likes of Joe Biden, or the mistakes they make, or the fact that you say that they lose enthusiasm and walk away, because they don't have, say, the passion that we have. We have passion for freedom. We've got passion to express ourselves and to be free individuals. They don't seem to have that.
No, they throw in the towel as soon as their plans don't come as perfectly as they want them. We've seen this all through history, but as soon as they feel like they've gotten enough out of it, they move on to something else. One of the things these personality disorder types, they're desperately bored. They're very easily bored, and so they'll play this pandemic game for a while and then move on to something else. But I wouldn't worry about them. There's an awful lot of doom out there. And a lot of, like, this is the end of the world. We're all going to be like microchipped and all this stuff like that. I think the game has run its course now. It's definitely, they're in the end game process because even, and there's still, what they wanted to prove from this was that they could make the whole planet compliant. They've done that. What they wanted to prove from this is that if they could teach if they told human beings that sticking a finger in one ear and jumping up and down on one leg would cure them of a disease, they'd all be doing it. They've taken Pavlovian conditioning to a level that even Pavlov in his wildest fantasies couldn't have come up with. And so they've got all the data they want now. The human race is basically useless at this point. I mean, this is why I've never believed that's, all you think was going to be a great awakening and all this, forget about it. If you haven't figured out that most of the people around you are idiots these days, you'll never figure it out. The thing is now for us who have can see through this whole facade and this whole charade is to actually try and build a society, a parallel existence outside it. And I think we'd be left alone because I really do believe, and I read something by Klaus Schwab recently, and it quite amazed me, where he said there will be people who will reject the Great Reset, but they'll probably be the most intelligent people out there, and it's probably best that they're the ones who survive. Or something like that. It almost made it sound like this whole thing was planned to kill off all the idiots and keep the rest of us who are cynical alive at times. So, I mean, I don't have a doom thing about this. I think they got all the data they want. They know that what they can do with the human race, and then they can sit on the laurels for a few years before they start a war or the next thing. But yeah, I think this was really a test run to see what social media had done to people. And social media played an enormous part of this, even through the peer pressure. I mean, to see people bullying people online and say, I'm nervous about getting a about getting the needlecraft, and everyone jumping on them saying you're killing people. And we saw the weird, you want to talk about weird like black magic stuff, the TikTok dancing by nurses and doctors and stuff like that. That showed that these people in the medical professions, a lot of them are also not in control of their faculties. I mean, I don't know if you saw the video from, I think it was Castlebar General Hospital in Mayo, where, I mean, that to me, I will never forget that as long as I live. That I would never set foot in that hospital, because I'm absolutely convinced, and so should other people, that hospital is run by lunatics, and the staff are lunatics, especially the ones who took part in that Jerusalem event. That you know, and and if you work in Castlebar Hospital, you're probably a lunatic, and the people you work, listen to me, and you work for are lunatics. And if you live in Mayo, you should be really asking questions like, what the hell has that is running our hospital here, doing dance routines with dead bodies and stuff, like pretending they're dead bodies, on top of it, looking for attention. And we all know there's tremendous narcissism in certain professions and stuff like that, but that was beyond something. So, like I've been saying from the beginning, this is the greatest education ever, right? There's a simple example of it. People in Mayo have found out that a general hospital is run by lunatics, right? They found that out. We have discovered that our politicians are basically idiots and hypocrites. We have discovered
and ourselves, and as society, and our doctors. But,
yeah,
but Thomas, what about breaking the spell, right? So say the spell finally gets broken, and the doctors put down the needles, and the nurses and everybody else is getting paid, and they go, what have we done? And the people who've taken the needlecraft go, I don't think I should have done that. And then people start dying from the needlecraft. Will that break the spell, or do you think they'll hold on to the narrative to the bitter end?
They'll go to the grave with 1,000 syringes in them. This is what we're dealing with. We're not dealing with people, you know, we're dealing with people who don't think anymore. I mean, one of the greatest things we've discovered about Ireland is that Ireland is a nation of cowards. Irish men are a nation of cowards. When you see all the hard men that I knew in around town were like this, are all wearing a big, their pink frilly mask, walking around with the eye on the side of their head, terrified. We've discovered that the Fighting Irish is a complete and total myth. Total and complete myth. Irish a nation of cowards. Simple, end of story. That's it. Okay. If it takes, you know, those of you who are offended by this out there, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me. I've seen grown men cowering in terror when I'd walk 3 feet near them without a mask. I've seen that. And these were the local hard men and stuff like that. I've seen.
And for something with like a 99.7% survival rate as well, you know, that looks and acts like the flu, which mysteriously disappeared, you know, so it makes no sense for the hysteria, for the nappies on the face, for, you know, the reaction has been completely overbloated.
Well, what about people who are getting sick from the needlecraft and then giving it to their kids, telling their kids to get it? How do you rationalize people like that? You simply can't. The attitude is like, and I'm completely serious when I say this. I've given up on most Irish people, and I've given up on most of the human race. And the ones who do see through it are the only one I'm associating with from now on. I do not trust these people around me in this world because they've shown their true colors, and they're absolutely terrified of anything, and they're completely. I mean, for years I was thinking about there was going to be some kind of big thing happen in the world. I never thought it would be like this. I always knew there was never going to be some great, you know, rising up and people seeing through it. But I just can't believe how bad it absolutely was, and how much people let me down. People I know that, Aisling, I know I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm not, right? I know vaccines work, right? But I wasn't going to put this, after I read up on this thing, no way that thing going anywhere. I've taken vaccines to go to third world countries. No way they're putting that piece of shit inside me.
It's not a vaccine.
Right. Now, I know people who spent their lives here in Ireland as anti-vaxxers, and they bottled it and couldn't wait to get the needle inside so they could go on holiday. So, and I mean, it was like, where did you go? Who are you now? You know, this is the dilemma so many of us are left with.
Well, Thomas, I could talk to you all night. You're a fascination. I love listening to you on YouTube, and to hear your insights. It's always something different, and it's always something unexpected. You're a true original thinker, and I think it's so wonderful to have that, because people are gone so bland and so beige and so grey, and we're afraid to have conversations, afraid to debate, afraid to question. So thank you so much for your insights on the One-to-One show, and we hope to get you back on again soon. And take care in County Sligo, and you know, you'll have your coffee mornings, won't you? Or not even coffee mornings, you have your coffee gatherings there with the tribe in Sligo. Just tell us about that before we go.
Well, they're happening all over the world now. There's like dozens of them in Holland and places like that now. There are people all over the world. I said to people, like, the best thing to do is not to have protests, because they're all you're doing is begging your government and showing them how much of a slave you are. The best thing is to ignore them. So meet up for coffee and give people, and people like us who are feeling a little isolated at times in their community, where they're surrounded by everyone's like an idiot except them, and they need some support and a bit of love and a bit of encouragement. Just find some people in your neighborhood and have a coffee with them on a Saturday morning or Sunday morning, whatever time you can. And don't turn it into a political thing. You can vent your frustrations and stuff like that, but talk about other things. Just don't. It's just so much. One of the most wicked things about this whole event was it's created huge amounts of loneliness. There's people who think everyone out there wants the vaccine except me. I feel so lonely and I've been isolated. I know people have been ostracized by their family or rejected by their family. Find the others. You know, I've got I'll put the next video I'll do, I'll put another link up, and people can put comments in where they're going to have their own coffee meetups, and you know,
and wear the Triscola as well.
Yeah, I thought that was a beautiful symbol because it's the oldest piece of Irish artwork. It has no religious or anything meaning. It's whatever you want it to mean, and it's beautiful, and it's our heritage, and it takes us right back to like what we are. That's the first piece of artwork ever produced by an Irish person, and I think we should always remember who we are and where we came from and what we are as a people, and also around the world. That appears everywhere. So you know, my YouTube channel is Thomas Sheridan Arts, and I've got a posh channel called Beyond Room 313 for documentaries and things like that. And so yeah, no, look, my advice to people would be, hold on, it's going to be okay eventually. And find people around you, rather than trying to talk your friends into understanding your point. Find people around you who understand how you feel and make friends with them. And don't let the bastards grind you down, because they always fail. There's no thing in history where they haven't failed. National Socialism is gone. The Bolsheviks are gone. They're all gone. You know, the Pol Pot is gone. And this bunch here, they will be gone too as well.
Okay, so hold on tight. Thomas, thank you so much for your time. We'll be back with a brand new guest next week. In the meantime, take care and stay strong. Thank you, Thomas.
Bye-bye.